You are absolutely hilarious tonight.
I learned from the best, honestly.
The notification pinged on my phone just as I was reviewing the catering order for the Hartwell Industries gala. 300 guests, premium bar, and enough shrimp to feed a small army. I glanced at the screen, expecting another vendor confirmation. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Instead, I got a text from my wife that made me freeze. FYI, I told everyone we're on pause. I stared at the message for a full 30 seconds, my brain struggling to process what I'd just read. Pause? What the hell did that mean? We weren't a Netflix subscription. My name is Thomas Rayner, and I've been managing high-end corporate events for 15 years. I've handled everything from product launches to charity galas, and I pride myself on staying calm under pressure. But this? This was something else entirely. I tried calling Priya immediately, straight to voicemail. Of course. Carla, I called to my office manager, who was sorting through vendor contracts at her desk. Have you heard from my wife today? Carla looked up, her dark hair falling across her face. She was 28, sharp as a tack, and had been keeping my business running smoothly for 3 years. No, why? Everything okay? I showed her the text. Her eyes widened. What does on pause even mean? She asked. That's what I'd like to know. The Hartwell Gala was tonight at the Grandview Hotel, one of those swanky venues with crystal chandeliers and marble floors that made everything echo. Priya's PR firm was handling the publicity, which meant she'd be there. We'd planned to attend together, like we had dozens of times before. I guess those plans had changed. The afternoon crawled by as I coordinated last-minute details. The florists arrived late, the sound system needed adjustments, and the catering staff somehow forgot half the appetizers. Normal event chaos, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept drifting back to that text. By 6 p.m., I was at the venue, watching the early arrivals filter in. Corporate executives in expensive suits, their wives dripping in jewelry, everyone playing their parts in the grand theater of business networking. That's when I saw her. Priya stood near the bar, stunning as always in a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her long dark hair was pulled back in an elegant updo, and she was laughing at something the man next to her was saying. Blake Feldman. I knew him. He ran a tech company that provided audio-visual equipment for events. We'd worked together a few times. He was the type of guy who wore designer jeans to business meetings and called everyone buddy. I approached them, forcing a smile. Hey, honey, I said, leaning in to kiss Priya's cheek. She turned slightly, so my lips barely grazed her skin. Oh, hi, Thomas, she said, her voice oddly formal. You remember Blake, right? Of course. How's business, Blake? Can't complain, he said, flashing that practiced smile of his. Great event tonight. You really outdid yourself. There was something in the way he looked at Priya when he said it, a familiarity that made my stomach clench. Thanks. Priya, can I talk to you for a minute? Actually, I'm in the middle of a conversation with Blake about his new sound system integration. It could be perfect for the Morrison account. The Morrison account. Right. Always about work with Priya. This'll just take a second. She sighed, the kind of exaggerated sigh she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. What is it, Thomas? Your text today. What did you mean by on pause? Blake suddenly found his drink very interesting, studying it like it contained the secrets of the universe. We can discuss this later, Priya said. This isn't the place. When is the place? You won't answer my calls. Because I'm working. This is a big night for both of us. Both of us. I thought we were on pause. The words came out sharper than I intended. A few nearby guests glanced our way. Priya's cheeks flushed. Whether from embarrassment or anger, I couldn't tell. "We'll talk at home," she said through gritted teeth. But I had a sinking feeling that home wasn't going to feel much like home anymore. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of forced smiles and professional pleasantries. I watched Priya work the room, charming clients and making connections, always with Blake hovering nearby. They made a good team, I had to admit. Both polished, both ambitious, both speaking the same language of corporate success. I caught fragments of conversations as I moved through the crowd. Greg Martinez, one of Priya's colleagues, was holding court near the dessert table. "Heard they're taking some time apart," he was saying to a small group. "Probably for the best. Thomas always seemed a bit blue-collar for her, you know? Blue-collar. Right. Because managing million-dollar events was somehow beneath their PR sensibilities. Around 10 p.m., I was supervising the breakdown when I noticed Priya and Blake in a corner near the coat check. They were standing close, too close, and Blake had his phone out. Priya was looking at the screen, and whatever she saw made her smile. That's when Blake's phone lit up with a notification. Even from 15 feet away, I could see Priya's name on the screen and the beginning of a message. "He'll be fine. He'll be fine." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The pause, the distance, the way Blake looked at my wife like he already owned her. I pulled out my own phone and opened Facebook. My relationship status still showed married to Priya Rayner. I tapped it, scrolled through the options, and selected single. Then I added a post. Moving forward, embracing new beginnings. Sometimes the best things happen when you stop trying to fix what's already broken. I hit share just as Malini Patel, Priya's sister, approached me. Malini was everything Priya aspired to be. Old money, social connections, the kind of woman who planned charity galas for fun and called it giving back. "Thomas, darling," she said, air-kissing both my cheeks. "Wonderful event tonight, though I have to say I'm a bit concerned about you and Priya." "Oh?" "She mentioned you two are having some difficulties. I do hope you can work things out. Marriage takes effort from both parties, you know." Both parties. As if I was the one who'd decided we were on pause. "Actually, Malini, I think we're past the working it out stage." Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Oh my, that's unfortunate. Well, these things happen. I'm sure you'll land on your feet." The condescension dripped from her voice like honey from a spoon. I was being dismissed, written off, filed under Priya's unfortunate first marriage. "I'm sure I will," I said. "In fact, I'm feeling better about things already." My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Notifications from Facebook, people commenting on my status change. I ignored them and focused on finishing the breakdown. The staff was efficient, and within an hour, the ballroom was back to its neutral state, ready for the next event, the next celebration, the next performance. As I was packing up my equipment, Carla appeared at my elbow. "Boss, you might want to see this," she said, showing me her phone. My Facebook post had 37 likes and 12 comments. Most were supportive. "Sorry to hear it, man, and you deserve better." But there were others that made my jaw clench. Greg Martinez had commented, "Probably for the best. Some people just aren't compatible long-term." Jennifer Walsh from Priya's firm had added, "Priya's better off focusing on her career right now anyway." And then there was Blake's comment, posted just minutes ago. "New beginnings are always exciting. Here's to fresh starts." The bastard was practically announcing his victory lap. "You okay?" Carla asked. I looked around the empty ballroom, at the remnants of another successful event, another night of making other people's celebrations perfect, while my own life fell apart. "You know what, Carla? I think I'm going to be just fine." But as I said it, I was already planning. Priya wanted a pause. Blake thought he'd won. They had no idea what they'd just started. Monday morning hit like a slap of cold reality. I sat in my office, nursing my third cup of coffee and staring at the joint bank account statements on my computer screen. 15 years of marriage, and apparently it could all be summarized in a series of deposits and withdrawals. "Morning, boss," Carla said, settling into her desk with her usual efficiency. "How was the weekend?" "Educational," I replied. "Carla, I need you to do me a favor. Can you call Eddie Martinez, your cousin, the private investigator?" She looked up sharply. "Everything okay?" "Let's just say I need some professional insight into my personal situation." Eddie Martinez was nothing like his namesake Greg from Priya's firm. Where Greg was all polished surfaces and corporate speak, Eddie was pure substance. Ex-cop turned private investigator, he had the kind of weathered face that said he'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. He arrived at my office around noon, carrying a coffee that looked strong enough to strip paint. "So," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk, "Carla says you need some help with a cheating spouse situation." "Allegedly cheating," I corrected. Eddie snorted. "Kid, I've been doing this for 12 years. Nobody calls a PI about an allegedly cheating spouse. They call when they already know and need proof." He was right, of course. Deep down, I'd known for weeks. The late nights at the office, the sudden interest in new clothes, the way Priya had started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. "What do you need to know?" Eddie asked. I told him about Blake, about the text, about the way they'd been acting at the gala. Eddie took notes in a small, battered notebook, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "This Blake character," he said finally. "He married?" "Yeah. Wife's name is Amanda. They have 2 kids. "Interesting. And your wife? She's in PR, right? Image is everything in that business." "Absolutely. Her reputation is her career." Eddie smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "Then we've got some leverage to work with." The first step was simple: financial protection. Priya might have declared us on pause, but she was still using our joint credit cards like they were her personal shopping fund. 3 charges at high-end restaurants in the past week, none of which I'd attended. I called the bank and froze the joint accounts pending marital review. Then I canceled the credit cards and had new ones issued in my name only. My phone rang within 2 hours. "Thomas, what the hell did you do?" Priya's voice was sharp with anger. "I secured our assets during our pause period. Seemed like the responsible thing to do." "You can't just freeze our accounts." "Actually, I can. My name's on them too, remember? We're married. Or paused. I'm not really sure what the rules are for paused marriages." There was silence on the other end. Then, "This is ridiculous. I need access to those accounts for work expenses." "Then unpause us and we'll talk about it." "It's not that simple, Thomas." "Sure it is. Either we're married and we share financial decisions, or we're not, and we handle our own money. You can't have it both ways." She hung up on me. Carla was grinning when I looked up. "Feel good?" "Better than I've felt in months." Eddie called that afternoon with preliminary findings. "Your boy Blake's been sloppy. Lunch dates, coffee meetings, even caught them at a hotel bar last Thursday. Nothing X-rated, but definitely not business meetings." "Can you get me something concrete?" "Working on it. But Thomas, you need to be careful here. You want revenge, I get it, but don't do anything stupid that'll bite you in the ass later." That evening, I was at Murphy's bar with my oldest friend, Sam Rodriguez. Sam was built like a linebacker and worked security at various venues around town. We'd known each other since high school, and he was one of the few people who'd seen me before I'd gotten polished by 15 years of corporate events. "So, she just texted you that you were on pause?" Sam asked, shaking his head. "That's cold, man, even for Priya." "You never liked her." "I never said that." "You didn't have to. Your face said it every time she walked into a room." Sam shrugged. "She's not a bad person. She's just ambitious." Sometimes ambitious people step on things that get in their way. Including their husbands? Apparently. We drank in silence for a while, watching the Monday night football game on the bar's ancient TV. Then Sam turned to me with a thoughtful expression. You know, I might have some information you'd find interesting. What kind of information? The kind that involves your wife's boyfriend and a certain parking garage incident last week. It turned out Blake had been bragging to some mutual acquaintances about his new situation. According to Sam's sources, Blake had been telling people that Priya was almost free and that they were planning to make things official soon. The guy's been running his mouth all over town, Sam said, talking about how he's upgrading from his current wife to a better model. He said that? Those exact words, according to Jerry Walsh. You know Jerry. He does sound for some of the bigger venues. He was working a wedding last weekend where Blake was a guest. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed made me freeze. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated replacement. Priya had found someone she thought was a better match for her ambitions, and Blake saw her as a trophy upgrade from his current family. "What are you thinking?" Sam asked, studying my expression. "I'm thinking they've both made a serious miscalculation." The next morning, I put the second phase of my plan into action. Eddie had managed to get copies of text messages between Priya and Blake. Nothing illegal, just the kind of flirty, unprofessional exchanges that would raise eyebrows in corporate settings. I created an anonymous email account and sent a carefully worded message to Blake's business partners, copying the messages and adding a note. "Thought you should know what your boy Blake is doing on company time." Blake's company, Feldman Audio Visual, had 3 partners besides Blake. They ran a tight ship and prided themselves on their professional reputation. The kind of people who wouldn't appreciate their partner using company resources to pursue married women. Within hours, Blake was calling me. "Thomas, we need to talk." "Do we?" "This is getting out of hand. Whatever you think is happening." "I don't think anything, Blake. I know exactly what's happening. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Look, I understand you're upset, but..." "Upset? I'm not upset. I'm just making sure everyone has all the information they need to make informed decisions." "What do you want?" The question hung in the air like smoke. What did I want? I wanted my wife back, but that ship had sailed. I wanted my old life back, but that was gone too. What I wanted was for them to understand that actions have consequences. "I want you to stop underestimating me," I said finally. That afternoon, Malini called. Priya's sister sounded flustered, which was unusual for someone who normally maintained the emotional temperature of a glacier. "Thomas, I think we need to discuss this situation like adults." "What situation is that, Malini?" "Don't be coy. Priya is beside herself. This financial freeze is completely unreasonable." "Is it?" "She declared our marriage on pause without consulting me. I'm just responding in kind." "Marriage is about compromise." "You're right. It is. So when Priya's ready to compromise, she knows how to reach me." "This is childish." "No, Malini. Childish would be announcing your marriage is on pause via text message. This is strategic." The silence stretched between us before she spoke again, her voice colder than before. "I hope you know what you're doing, Thomas." "For the first time in months, I absolutely do." After I hung up, Carla looked over at me with something that might have been admiration. "You're really going through with this?" "They wanted to play games," I said. "They just didn't realize I've been watching them make the rules." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I showed it to Carla, who frowned. "Blake?" "Probably." "You worried?" I thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "No, I'm excited." Wednesday brought the kind of gray, drizzling weather that made everything look like a noir film. I was in my office, reviewing contracts for an upcoming charity auction, when Eddie called with an update. "Got some interesting developments," he said. Your boy Blake's in hot water with his partners. Seems they didn't appreciate those text messages you shared. How hot? Hot enough that they're reviewing his partnership agreement. Apparently, using company equipment to pursue extramarital affairs violates their morality clause. I couldn't help but smile. And Priya? That's where it gets interesting. She's been doing damage control at her firm, but word's getting around. PR people love gossip, even when it's about their own. That afternoon, I had a meeting with the Morrison Group about their annual conference. It was a big account, the kind that could make or break a small event planning business like mine. I was surprised when Jennifer Walsh from Priya's firm showed up to the meeting. "Thomas," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "Good to see you." Jennifer was one of those women who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, blonde, polished, and sharp enough to cut glass. She'd always been cordial to me at industry events, but there was something different in her manner today. Jennifer. I didn't realize Hartwell PR was involved in this project. Last-minute addition. We're handling the media relations. The meeting went well until Jennifer started making subtle digs about reliability and personal stability in vendor relationships. Nothing direct, nothing actionable, but clear enough that everyone in the room understood what she was implying. After the clients left, Jennifer lingered. "You know, Thomas, this whole situation with Priya is unfortunate." "What situation is that?" "The separation. It's affecting her work, and by extension, it's affecting the industry relationships we've all worked so hard to build." "I see. And you think that's my fault?" "I think," she said, gathering her papers with deliberate precision, "that some people handle adversity better than others. Priya's handling this with grace. You're making it difficult for everyone." After she left, I sat in my office staring out at the gray sky. They were circling the wagons, protecting their own. Priya was the victim, and I was the bitter ex making everyone's life difficult. Time to change that narrative. I called Sam. "You free tonight?" "Depends. We talking about drinking beer and watching the game, or are we talking about the other thing?" "The other thing." "I'll pick you up at 8. Blake's Tesla was parked in the garage beneath his office building, gleaming under the fluorescent lights like a monument to his success. It was the kind of car that screamed, "I've made it," all sleek lines and expensive technology. "You sure about this?" Sam asked as we approached the vehicle. "Completely. We'd brought a small toolkit and a portable jack. Nothing destructive, nothing permanent. Just a little inconvenience to match the inconvenience Blake had brought into my life." 20 minutes later, Blake's Tesla sat on 4 jack stands, its wheels neatly stacked beside it. I left a note under the windshield wiper. "Thought you might need some time to pause and reflect. T." "Think he'll get the message?" Sam asked as we loaded the equipment back into his truck. "Oh, he'll get it." The next morning brought a furious phone call from Blake. "You son of a bitch! Do you have any idea what you've done? I've given you an opportunity to experience the same kind of unexpected inconvenience you've given me. This is vandalism." "Actually, it's not. I didn't damage anything. Your car is perfectly fine, just temporarily immobilized, kind of like my marriage." "I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. Explain to them why you think I removed your wheels. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the whole story." The line went quiet. Blake wasn't stupid. Involving the police would mean explaining the entire situation, including his affair with my wife. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You thought you could waltz into my life, steal my wife, and I'd just quietly disappear. You were wrong. This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's not." That afternoon, Priya showed up at my office. She looked tired, stressed, and angrier than I'd seen her in years. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door behind her. "Hello to you, too." "Don't. Just don't. What you did to Blake was completely out of line. What I did to Blake was creative problem solving. He had a transportation issue, and I helped him understand how it feels when your life gets disrupted without warning. You can't what? Can't react when my wife decides our marriage is on pause? Can't protect myself when her boyfriend starts bragging around town about upgrading to a better model? Priya's face flushed. He didn't say that. Actually, he did. Jerry Walsh heard him at the Henderson wedding, word for word. She sank into the chair across from my desk, suddenly looking older than her 38 years. Thomas, this isn't how I wanted things to go. How did you want them to go? You'd quietly transition from me to Blake, I'd disappear gracefully, and everyone would pretend this was all very civilized. I wanted us to handle this like adults. Adults communicate. Adults don't announce major life changes via text message. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 15 years settling between us like dust. I never meant to hurt you, she said finally. But you did. And now you're upset because I'm not absorbing that hurt quietly. The financial freeze, the business with Blake's partners. You're trying to destroy us. I'm trying to level the playing field. You and Blake made your plans in secret, built your future on the assumption that I'd just accept whatever you decided. I'm showing you that I have some agency in this situation too. Priya stood up, smoothing her skirt with sharp, angry movements. Fine. You want to play games? We can play games. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. After she left, Carla looked up from her desk. That sounded ominous. Yeah, it did. You worried? I thought about it. Priya was smart, connected, and now she was motivated. She had resources I didn't, relationships I couldn't match. Maybe I should be, I admitted. But you're not? No, because she's still thinking like this is a PR problem she can manage. She doesn't understand that I'm not trying to manage anything anymore. I'm just responding. That evening, Eddie called with more information. Your wife's been busy, he said. She's been making calls, having meetings. Word is she's putting together some kind of counter-strategy. What kind of counter-strategy? Not sure yet, but it involves that sister of hers and some of the people from her firm. They're planning something for this weekend. This weekend? There's some kind of industry event, a charity thing at the country club. Lots of your mutual contacts will be there. The Riverside Country Club charity auction. I'd completely forgotten about it. It was one of those events where the local business community gathered to network, donate money to worthy causes, and see who was sleeping with whom. They're going to try to control the narrative, I realized. That'd be my guess. Get their story out first, make you look like the bad guy. I hung up and stared out my office window at the city lights. Priya was moving to the next phase, bringing in reinforcements, preparing for a more public battle. Good. I was tired of fighting in the shadows. Time to take this war into the open. The Riverside Country Club looked like something out of a movie. All white columns and manicured lawns, the kind of place where old money went to mingle with new money and pretend they were all on the same level. The charity auction was in full swing when I arrived, fashionably late and strategically positioned. I'd spent the morning preparing. Eddie had delivered a comprehensive file on Blake's business dealings, including some questionable expense reports and a few client complaints that his partners didn't know about. Nothing illegal, but definitely unprofessional. More importantly, I'd made some calls of my own. Thomas! Margaret Riverside, the club's social coordinator, swept over to greet me. I wasn't sure you'd be here tonight. Wouldn't miss it. It's for a good cause. Margaret was one of those women who knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. She was also the kind of person who could make or break social reputations with a well-placed comment. Yes, well, we're all hoping for a successful evening, though I have to say there's been quite a bit of chatter about various personal situations. Oh? You know how people talk, especially about marriages and such. I could see Priya across the room, holding court near the silent auction tables. She was wearing a stunning red dress that I'd never seen before, probably bought with one of those credit cards before I froze the accounts. Blake stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in a tuxedo that didn't quite fit right. Malini was there too, along with Jennifer Walsh and several other members of Priya's professional circle. They'd positioned themselves strategically, creating a small social fortress in the center of the room. "Excuse me, Margaret. I see some people I need to speak with." I made my way through the crowd, stopping to chat with various acquaintances. Word of the separation had spread, of course, but I was surprised by how many people seemed genuinely sympathetic. "Sorry to hear about you and Priya," said David Chen, who ran a catering company I'd worked with for years. "These things happen, but it's never easy." "Thanks, David. Actually, I'm doing pretty well. Sometimes change is exactly what you need." "Good attitude. You always were resilient." I was working my way toward Priya's group when I noticed Amanda Feldman near the bar. Blake's wife looked elegant but tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. "Amanda," I said, approaching her with what I hoped was a sympathetic expression. "How are you holding up?" She looked surprised to see me. "Thomas, I'm fine. How are you?" "Honestly, I've been better. This whole situation has been difficult for everyone involved." Amanda's composure cracked slightly. "I don't know what you mean." "Of course you do. Blake told you about the separation, didn't he? About how he and Priya have been spending time together?" The color drained from her face. "I don't think we should be discussing this." "You're right. We shouldn't have to. But here we are." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo Eddie had taken of Blake and Priya at lunch earlier that week. Nothing scandalous, but intimate enough to tell a story. "Amanda, you seem like a nice person. You deserve to know what's really going on." She stared at the photo for a long moment, her hands trembling slightly. "How long?" she asked quietly. "At least 2 months. Probably longer." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I suspected, but I hoped I was wrong. I'm sorry. I really am. But I thought you should hear it from someone who understands what you're going through." Amanda nodded, straightening her shoulders with visible effort. "Thank you for telling me." She walked away toward the ladies' room, and I felt a pang of guilt. She was collateral damage in this war, an innocent victim of Blake's ambitions and Priya's selfishness. But sometimes innocent people get hurt when the guilty finally face consequences. 20 minutes later, Amanda returned to the main room, her makeup refreshed and her expression determined. She walked straight to where Blake was standing with Priya and tapped him on the shoulder. The conversation that followed was brief but intense. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see Blake's face go pale as Amanda spoke. Priya looked confused at first, then alarmed as she realized what was happening. Amanda's voice rose just enough for nearby guests to catch fragments. "Lying to me for months. And done with this marriage." Blake tried to take her arm, but she pulled away sharply. The movement caught the attention of more guests, creating a small circle of uncomfortable observers. "Don't touch me," Amanda said, her voice carrying across the room. "Don't you dare touch me." She turned and walked toward the exit, leaving Blake standing there with everyone staring. Priya looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. The damage was immediate and devastating. Within minutes, the whispered conversations had spread throughout the room. The affair was no longer a rumor. It was confirmed, public, and impossible to ignore. I found myself standing next to Margaret Riverside as she watched the drama unfold. "Well," she said quietly, "that's certainly going to be the talk of the town." "I imagine so. Poor Amanda. She's such a lovely woman. And those children." The guilt twisted in my stomach again, but I pushed it down. Blake had made his choices. Amanda deserved to know the truth. Across the room, Malini was trying to do damage control, speaking quietly to various guests with the kind of urgent diplomacy that screamed crisis management. Jennifer Walsh had positioned herself near Priya, creating a protective barrier against curious onlookers. But it was too late. The story was out, and in a community like ours, there was no putting it back in the bottle. Blake approached me near the coat check, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You bastard. You planned this whole thing." "I didn't plan anything. I just made sure Amanda had the information she needed to make informed decisions about her marriage." "You destroyed my family." "No, Blake, you destroyed your family. I just made sure your wife found out about it." "This isn't over." "You keep saying that, but look around. It pretty much is." Blake glanced around the room, taking in the stares and whispered conversations. His reputation was in ruins, his marriage was over, and his business partnerships were already on shaky ground. "Priya won't forgive you for this," he said. "Priya's forgiveness isn't something I'm particularly concerned with anymore." After Blake left, I stayed for another hour, watching the social dynamics play out. Priya had retreated to a corner table with her support group, looking shell-shocked and defeated. The confident, controlled woman who declared our marriage on pause was nowhere to be seen. As I was leaving, Margaret Riverside stopped me at the door. "Thomas, I hope you know what you're doing." "What do you mean?" "Revenge can be satisfying, but it's also dangerous. It has a way of consuming the people who pursue it." "This isn't about revenge, Margaret. It's about truth." "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've just burned down half the social structure of this town." She wasn't wrong. The fallout from tonight would ripple through the community for months. Business relationships would be affected, social circles would realign, and everyone would have to choose sides. "Sometimes," I said, "things need to burn down before they can be rebuilt properly." Margaret studied my face for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Well, you've certainly lit the match. I just hope you're prepared for what comes next." As I drove home through the quiet streets, I felt a mixture of satisfaction and unease. The public humiliation had been more complete than I'd hoped, but it had also been more brutal than I'd intended. Amanda Feldman's face haunted me, the moment when she realized her marriage was a lie, the dignity with which she'd handled the revelation, the pain she couldn't quite hide. But then I thought about Priya's text. FYI, I told everyone we're on pause, and the satisfaction returned. They'd wanted to play games with people's lives. Now they were learning that games have winners and losers, and I was just getting started. The week after the country club incident brought a strange kind of quiet. It was like the calm before a hurricane. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but you could feel the pressure building in the air. Priya had moved out of our house and into Malini's guest room. She'd also hired a lawyer, which Eddie discovered when he saw her coming out of Davidson and Associates downtown. "She's playing for keeps now," he told me over coffee at Murphy's bar. "Davidson doesn't handle simple divorces. They handle warfare." "Good," I said. "I'm tired of half measures." But I wasn't prepared for how vicious things were about to become. It started with my business. 3 clients canceled their contracts within 2 days, all citing concerns about reliability or changes in our vendor requirements. The language was corporate speak, but the message was clear. Priya's network was striking back. Then Jennifer Walsh called with an offer that was clearly a trap. "Thomas, I know things have been difficult lately, but I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening." "We're planning a major event for the Hartwell Group, their 20th anniversary celebration. It's a big contract, very high profile. We'd like you to handle the event management." It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. "What's the catch, Jennifer?" "No catch. We just believe in separating personal issues from professional relationships." After I hung up, I called Eddie. "It's a setup," he said immediately. "They're going to give you the contract, then sabotage the event and blame you for the failure. Classic reputation assassination. Can you prove it? Give me a few days. Those few days brought more pressure. Sam called to tell me that Blake had been asking around about me, specifically about my finances and my business relationships. He's looking for leverage, Sam said, trying to find something he can use against you. Let him look. My books are clean. What about your methods? Some of the stuff we've been doing isn't exactly conventional. He had a point. The wheel removal, the anonymous emails, the strategic information sharing, none of it was illegal, but it wasn't exactly above board either. Are you getting cold feet? I asked. No, but I'm worried you're getting in over your head. These people have resources you don't. That night, I sat in my empty house, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories, wedding photos, vacation souvenirs, furniture we'd picked out together. All of it felt like artifacts from someone else's life. My phone rang, Priya's number. Thomas, we need to talk. About what? About ending this insanity before it destroys both of us. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown that neither of us had ever been to before. Priya looked exhausted, older than I'd ever seen her. The confident, polished woman I'd married was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she'd been through a war. This has to stop, she said without preamble. What has to stop? The games, the sabotage, the public humiliation, all of it. I'm not playing games, Priya. I'm just responding to the situation you created. By destroying Blake's marriage, by ruining his business relationships, by turning our entire social circle into a battlefield, by making sure everyone knows the truth about what you two were doing. She leaned back in her chair, studying my face like she was seeing me for the first time. You've changed, she said finally. No. I've just stopped pretending that being nice will make any difference. What do you want from me? It was a good question. What did I want? An apology? An explanation? For her to come back? I want you to understand that your actions have consequences. You can't just decide our marriage is on pause and expect me to disappear quietly while you start your new life. I never asked you to disappear. Didn't you? The frozen-out conversations, the credit card charges at restaurants I wasn't invited to, the way you and Blake looked at each other like I was already gone. What was that if not a request for me to disappear? Priya was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup like it might contain answers. I didn't handle this well, she admitted finally. No, you didn't. But what you're doing now, it's not making anything better. It's just making everything worse for everyone. Everyone? Or just for you and Blake? For everyone. Amanda's children are asking why their father doesn't live with them anymore. Blake's business is falling apart. My career is in shambles. How is any of that helping anyone? The guilt was there again, sharper this time. I thought about Amanda Feldman's face at the country club, the dignity with which she'd handled her public humiliation. You should have thought about those consequences before you started your affair. You're right. I should have. But that doesn't make what you're doing right. We sat in silence, the weight of our failed marriage settling between us like a physical presence. What happens now? I asked. I don't know. My lawyer thinks we should be able to work out a settlement without too much drama, assuming you're willing to be reasonable. Reasonable, right. Like you were reasonable when you decided our marriage was on pause? Priya sighed, the sound carrying 15 years of accumulated frustration. I can't change what I did, Thomas. But you can choose how you respond to it. After she left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking about choices and consequences, and the difference between justice and revenge. My phone buzzed with a text from Eddie. Got the proof you wanted about the Hartwell setup. Call me. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without reading the details. Some battles aren't worth winning. The next morning, I called Jennifer Walsh. About the Hartwell contract, I said. I'm going to have to pass. Oh, may I ask why? Let's just say I'm focusing on other opportunities right now. There was a pause, then, I see. Well, if you change your mind, I won't. I spent the rest of the day cleaning out my office, sorting through contracts and client files. Carla watched me with growing concern. Boss, what are you doing? Simplifying. This looks more like giving up. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was giving up. Or maybe I was finally understanding the difference between winning and destroying everything in the process. That evening, I called Blake. We need to meet, I said. Why would I want to meet with you? Because I have something you want. We met in the parking garage where I'd removed his wheels, a bit of irony that wasn't lost on either of us. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand something. This war between us, it ends now. Just like that? Just like that. You won. You got Priya. You destroyed my marriage. You got what you wanted. Congratulations. Blake looked suspicious, like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's the catch? No catch. But if you ever hurt her the way you hurt Amanda, if you ever treat her like she's disposable, I'll make what I did to you look like a friendly warning. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I turned to walk away, then stopped. Blake? Yeah? She's going to do to you what she did to me. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but eventually. When she finds someone she thinks is a better match for her ambitions, you'll get the same text I got. Remember that. I left him standing there in the parking garage, probably wondering if I was right. I hoped I wasn't for Priya's sake. But I suspected I was. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later. The settlement was fair, more than fair, actually. Priya kept the house, I kept the business, and we split everything else down the middle. I signed them without reading the details. 6 months later, I was running a smaller but more profitable event planning business, focusing on clients who valued substance over style. Carla had stayed with me, and we'd hired 2 new people, both refugees from larger firms who were tired of corporate politics. Sam stopped by the office on a Friday afternoon carrying a newspaper. Thought you might find this interesting, he said, pointing to the society page. There was a photo from some charity event, Priya and Blake, looking happy and successful. The caption identified them as power couple Priya Rayner and Blake Feldman. How do you feel about that? Sam asked. I studied the photo for a moment. They looked good together, polished, ambitious, perfectly matched in their pursuit of success. I feel like they deserve each other, I said finally, and I meant it. That evening, I was locking up the office when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Thomas, this is Amanda Feldman. I was surprised to hear from her. We hadn't spoken since the country club incident. Amanda, how are you? I'm better. The divorce was finalized last month. I'm sorry. Don't be. You did me a favor, actually. I just wanted you to know that. I'm glad you're doing well. I also wanted to tell you something else. Blake's been having some problems at work. Apparently his partners aren't happy with his performance lately. Oh? He's been distracted, making mistakes. They're talking about buying him out. After she hung up, I sat in my car for a while, thinking about karma and consequences and the way life has of balancing the scales. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Things aren't working out the way I planned. P. I stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. Some conversations aren't worth having. I drove home through the quiet streets, past the country club where it all started, past the house where Priya and I had built our life together, past all the places where our story had played out. But I wasn't thinking about the past anymore. I was thinking about the future, about the business I was building, about the life I was creating, about the person I was becoming. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Priya's number. Please, I made a mistake. This time, I didn't delete it right away. I read it twice, thinking about forgiveness and second chances and the difference between love and habit. Then I deleted it and turned off my phone. Some mistakes you don't get to unmake. Some bridges you don't get to uncross. And some people you just have to let go, no matter how much it hurts. I pulled into my driveway, looked up at my empty house, and smiled. It was going to be a good life. I